Hey, I'm Kylie. I'm the CEO of a startup company and I like to build financial models in my free time. And today we're going to break down how much money a gas station makes. So let's get right into it. To start, I already laid out a bunch of assumptions that I thought I needed to make. And I watched a bunch of videos and did a bunch of reading on different gas stations. The model just kind of excited me. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by inputting what I think I know and what I've already researched, and I'll fill in a few other things along the way. There's only so much information available out there. But I would say the average price of a gas station that I want to model is about $3.5 million. And then the down payment on that is somewhere in the range of 20% plus or minus. So let's say 25%. So that means you have to put $875,000 out of your pocket. The rate with the SBA right now is probably around 5%. And so the total loan is the price minus the down payment. So we're going to go with a 10-year loan term. One more time, plus 10 times 12 is 120 months. And so the payment, we'll just use the feature in Excel for payment. So our rate is that divided by 12. Our periods is there. Our present value is negative loan total. We don't have a future value, and we can just close the cell. So our loan payment monthly looks like it would be about $27,842. So off over here on the side, let's make sure that that makes sense. So we have this times 120, $3.3 million. That's about right. Total paid over the course of 10 years, $3.3 million. So sometimes these things like Shell, Chevron, everything else comes along with franchise fees. But if you buy the franchise from somebody already established, that should be built into the sales price. So I'm actually going to not do these two here. Then we have different types of sales in the gas station. We have inside sales and outside sales. So inside sales would be candy, food, drinks, anything inside the store, whereas outside sales would be fuel. From what I researched, the average inside sales margin is about 30%. And then we're going to look at a gas stations. From what I saw in this price range, that you about 10x your monthly revenue to get to your sales price. It's kind of what I found. So say $350,000 should be the monthly revenue. We're going to have to work out what the profit looks like there, because the gas station that I researched and saw, they profited around $500,000 a year with $350,000 in revenue. So we can back into that in just a second. The estimated price per gallon, we'll say, is about $3.50. That's probably a little low for right now, but we'll just go with that for this model. And then let's go down here. And another thing I saw in my research was the profit split between inside and outside sales is generally about 40-60. So that's profit. So 40% outside, 60% inside. And generally, gas stations make about a quarter per gallon that they sell you. So they make about 25 cents per gallon that they sell you. So let's go back up here and back out some numbers. So if we say our monthly outside revenue is, let's just take a stab at it, 175, say half of it, $175,000. Then the inside revenue would be the combined revenue minus the outside revenue. So the gross outside would be how much we make in revenue outside divided by our price per gallon times what we make per gallon, which would be 25 cents. So that means we're only grossing about $12,500 off of $175,000 in sales, which is not that much realistically, but you're just making on the fuel. All right, so the gross on the inside sales would be $175,000 times our inside sales profit margin, which is right up here. So that's $52,500 for a total gross of $52,500 plus $12,500, about $65,000. Put a row in there. Then we're going to say our average wage is about $16 an hour. That works out pretty good. And we have 3% credit card fees. A few other things that we'll factor in, but we don't really affect the model at an early stage, is how long is your contract with your branded fuel provider? Usually it's about 10 years. That's just some info. And pump maintenance matters. So apparently they replace the pump handles and a few things really, really often. So this can be a reasonable expense over time, adding up to maybe up to $1,000 a month. So we're going to put 1,000 right there. Here's a few licenses that you need in order to run a gas station: liquor, lottery, insurance, food permits. And then we can get down to our expected profit, which before debt service, let's say this is expected profit before we pay this $27,842 per month, would be around $40,000. Okay. The keys to success: clean, location, obvious. So let's start to build out the model here. So we're going to say we buy a gas station for $3.5 million. We put $875,000 down. And our goal is to maybe grow it over time by going in and either improving the inventory, cleaning it up, doing a few things like that to make it slightly more attractive. One thing I didn't realize about gas stations is most of their profit is tied up in the inside sales. Realistically, let's look at this. You sell $175,000 worth of gas, which is, let's see how many gallons that is. It's 50,000 gallons a month. You only make 12 grand. So that's not going to do too much for your profit after you pay all these other expenses associated with it. Another thing that I saw is, in general, the G&A for a gas station is about 20 grand a month. So this wraps up the wages and the insurance and a few things like that. Seems like a nice round number, but I also wanted to test that real quick to make sure that makes sense for what we're doing. So if we're paying people $16 an hour down here on average wage, scroll down, and we are open 24 hours and we need at least 2 people on shift. Well, let's say we need 2 people on shift. Let's just work that out. So we have 24 times 2. We have 48 hours to work every day. And so we have 48 times 16, $768 a day in wages. And this times 30, that's $23,000 right there. Of course, we're not going to have people on staff overnight. We'll probably have one person on staff overnight there by themselves. A few things like that. But, we're close. I would say G&A may need to be rounded up to around $25,000 in this scenario. So to get it close enough. Okay. All right, let's go up here and look at months, growths, and revenue. All right, so revenues, we're going to stick with this monthly combined revenue of $350,000. And we're going to split it 50-50 to just start with, to get to our see where we get with our expected profit. We can hone them from there. So I'm going to say the outside sales is this 175, and the inside sales is this 175. Okay, so that puts our gross margins over here, 12,500 and 52,500. So we can look at growth in a minute, but let's kind of work down to a net here and see if we can get to that expected profit number of around $40,000 per month before debt service. Work off of that. All right, so our total gross is the sum of these two numbers here, and then we'll look at our expenses. So we have G&A, which is really most of it wrapped up here because everything else is wrapped up in the gross. And our expenses, our G&A expenses are $25,000. And so that puts our net right here. And this is a very simple model because obviously insurance and a few of those things are baked into G&A right at that $40,000 number that we wanted it to be at, which was dumb luck. So now we'll look at debt service. And your debt service is there. So net after debt would be around $12,157. So let's look at the ROI right here. So the ROI, if we annualize this times 12 and we divided it by our cash on cash return, it's looking like a 17% ROI annualized, which is a pretty solid investment. Of course, now this is not a passive investment whatsoever. This is a really, really active investment, but that's not too bad. So let's factor a little growth into it and see where we might be able to get over time. Now I'm going to look. I also like to forecast cash flow and understand how cash kind of flows through the business and when you might be able to buy another one, and a few things like that. So we'll start with. Let's start here. Beginning cash. ending cash. And let's assume that you have to put about 100 grand worth of inventory and everything else into the business off the rip, and we'll earn that back over a few months because nothing's ever free. So let's start in the negative $100,000 mark, and our ending cash would be this plus our net. So now we're getting back, and then our beginning cash from the next period would be the ending cash from the period after that, which this is monthly. So now we're going to look at month over month growth, and let's say we can grow at about 1% per month. So we'll just do this times 1 plus the growth rate there, 353,000. So our outside sales are going to be growing at the same rate. Everything's growing at 1% across the board, which makes it easy. So here, times 1 plus growth rate. And same thing here, times 1 plus growth rate. Okay, so for our outside sales, we have to formulate that just slightly differently. So we have to take the dollar value of gas and divide it by the price per gallon. Of course, this model is dependent on that price per gallon staying pretty level. Of course, your outside sales revenue will fluctuate heavily, but what matters are gallons sold, but we're going off of the actual dollar values here. Assuming that goes up over time without the price per gallon increasing, then we get an increase in profit. So our outside sales is the total number dollar value divided by the price per gallon times our margin per gallon, which is a quarter. So we grew about $125 there. And then our inside sales is just times our markup, which is 30%. So our total gross there looks like it grew by around $650. Our G&A is going to stay around the same, and our net is going to be slightly better, $650 better. Our debt service stays the same, so I like to hit F2, then F4 to lock the cell. That goes there, and then our net after debt will be slightly better, and our ROI annualized, if I could do the formula correctly. So our ROI annualized, what we have to do is lock cell C4, and then it goes up. I mean, it went up almost a full percent, which is mind-boggling. So it went up a full percent because we annualized that over 12 months. So the difference here, which is around $650, extrapolates to over $6,000 over the course of the year, which is close to 1% of $875,000. So that's there, and then we can say our ending cash is once again the beginning cash plus the net after debt. All right, so if we can go through and formulate or format all these appropriately, and then we can lock the cells, we can drag it over and see how it turns out over the course of several years. So if we can grow at 1% per month for 36 months, which is an awful lot. Let's say we can grow at 1% per month for 24 months, and then we kind of flatten out to 0 over time. Okay, so let's drag it out, see where we get, and then we'll do a little bit further analysis and wrap up the video. Okay, so I need to go over here and I need to lock some cells. So I need to lock any cells that are in column C that I can find, or column D. So those don't have any. That has a C19 and a C30. So C19, estimated price per gallon. C30, fuel margin. This has C13, which is inside sales margin. That one's fine, that one's fine, that one's fine, already locked. Good, good, good. Okay. All right, so let's go here. Let's copy all of them. Go up to the top there, over 36, and it looks like everything's good. And now we can do a little analysis to see where we get over the course of some time. As we can see that the first thing I look at is the ROI value. It goes up over time, so that's positive, assuming we grow our ROI. If we annualize it out the future 12 months, then we're getting better ROI over time, which is kind of what you want in something like this. The debt service stays consistent over the course of 3 years because it's a 10-year term, so that's to be expected. Our net is going up, and then we kind of break even on our initial 100 grand in right here in month 8. I like that in a pale yellow. Okay, also what I'm going to look at is when can we start thinking about doing this again? We know initially we had to put down $875,000. How long does it take us to get to the 875 to where we can do that again? Probably a long time. I doubt we can do it within 3 years. But it actually gets pretty close. Let's stretch this out and see how far we got to go. We get there, not quite. Yeah, so we get there in month. This is 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41, 42. 42. So we get there in month 41. So in month 41, we could do all this again if we didn't have to live off the net, essentially. So we could be putting money back, but as far as I'm concerned, a lot of this net after debt service is basically owner salaries. So, you don't have to pay yourself $144,000 a year, which is what you'd get after debt here. 12 times 12 is about 144. But you could pay yourself half of it or something along those lines and put a lot back and kind of look at doing this over and over again. What I'm getting from this is, a fair price. It's probably in the $3.5 million range for something that nets about 40 grand before debt service. But that's not something that you can repeat over and over and over again really quickly. It's something that you basically have to put back for a few years and then you could do it again. However, that would accelerate. You would half your time to that level of being able to buy another one. If the first time it takes you 4 years, the second time it would take you 2, the third time it would take you 1, and then within 6 or 7 years, you could really have this model and repeat and probably get 6, 10, 12, 15, who knows, the sky's the limit, gas stations, as long as you had an operating model that was that you could go in, implement, and move on from. So yeah, that's a really interesting analysis. I've never broken down a gas station before and see how much money they can actually make. I'm actually a little surprised that gas stations don't tend to make more money than this. However, the profit margins on fuel are really, really slim, only making a quarter per gallon. If the average car has 20 gallons, then you're not making that. You're making $5 for every car that rolls through and fills up. That's a good good return, but it's not a whole lot of money. It takes an awful lot of cars to make a decent amount of profit off the cars. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this helps. I hope you learned something, whether it's about financial modeling or gas stations. If you like the content, then make me some suggestions in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.